According to Stengel in 1994, as a charismatic leader, Nelson Mandela at age 75 would not be considered as leading from behind. Mandela revealed his authority standing at the head of African National Congress as symbol and standard holder, while forming strategy from behind by suggestion, pressure, and indirection. At times he may have stepped ahead of his colleagues to create policy, but often he simply planted a seed as an idea for bearing fruit years later. Mandela had joined the African National Congress to defend the rights of black people by using nonviolent methods, according to the Buckwater 2006. If black children had the opportunity to go to school, they had very little materials, teachers, or even fit facilities. Buckwater explains that white children in schools had supplies, equipment, books, and teachers as needed. These white students attended free up to 15 years of age. The black children, however, had to pay. Stegall goes on to explain how the dynamic of leadership was witnessed by Mandela early on. Mandela's guardian presided over tribal town meetings. These meetings allowed everyone a chance to speak their mind, and they could last for days until all of them were finished. Mandela sat and listened thoughtfully in silence to his guardian, who was the chief. At the end of these meetings, when the chief would wait to speak, he would negotiate the consensus. Here Mandela learned that decisions are molded, not imposed. Mandela, as a natural leader of masses, was not exactly an inclusive on the characteristics of a charismatic figure. He can be seen given the clenched fist African National Congress salute, and even dance a few steps of something called the toi-toi, according to Stengel. However, as he speaks to the people, cheers turn into a puzzled silence. To quote Stengel, "Not for Mandela the soaring metaphors of Martin Luther King, or the rhyming or euphemisms of Jesse Jackson. He addresses his audiences in the sober, didactic style of an organic chemistry professor." Mandela says he tries not to be a ramble-rouser, as the people want things explained clearly and rationally. He says they're interested in how you handle difficult situations, basically whether or not you're calm. In 1993, Mandela received the Nobel Peace Prize along with F.W.D. Clerk. According to the Buckwater 2006, he accepted it on behalf of all South Africans who suffered to bring equality to their nation. Gladden Blanton in 1997 reported that de Klerk and Mandela had the same goal for a transitional constitution and arranged elections in Africa. They had clear visions of a new Africa, but they also pursued them unconventionally, willing to take political risks and to make sacrifices. De Klerk and Mandela came from prominent families with parents who were models of leadership behavior, which fostered great self-esteem as true for many transformational leaders, according to Gladden Blanton. Transformational politicians such as these face great challenges in the changes they seek to make. Simple charismatic leadership may not be able to make the desired changes. For a little background, Mandela was arrested August 5th for illegally leaving the country and taking part in organizing an illegal strike in May of 1961. Brown in 2000 explains that as an attorney, Mandela chose to defend himself. He argued that he was also defending the aspirations of all black South Africans. The court found him guilty and sentenced him to 5 years in prison. While serving his 5-year sentence, several of the African National Congress were charged with sabotage, treason, and violence. Already in custody, Mandela was sentenced to life in prison along with them. According to Brown, Mandela eloquently reminded his oppressors of his resilience. Mandela spent 18 years in Robben Island maximum security prison. This did not break Mandela as it would most men. He and his conspirators continued their efforts in prison. He even secretly wrote his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. Mandela was released February 11, 1990. Stepping down at age 77, Mandela was at the end of his term. Buckwater depicts him moving into a new career. Mandela began to be an advocate for health education. His focus was to fight the AIDS epidemic in South Africa. He still clung to caring and protecting those with greatest needs. The children were always his focus. Mandela considered them a treasure and a value to the wealth of any country. His continued pursuit to educate them conveyed his thoughts of children as future leaders. According to Buckwater, Mandela states this about children: their health must be looked after, and above all, they must be given love. Mandela lived to be 95 years old, and he passed away on December 5th in 2013. The references for this presentation are Brown, The Life and Times of Nelson Mandela; Buckwater, Nelson Mandela, an activist, prisoner, president. Also included in the references are Blanton, F.W. de Klerk and Nelson Mandela, A Study in Cooperative Transformational Leadership; Stengel, The Making of a Leader, from Time. Thank you for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation on Nelson Mandela.